discuss some NHL news. But back by popular demand, we're going to do a little overrated, underrated. We'll be a little briefer this time around because the band is not as good as the Beatles, and that's the Rolling Stones. Of which, this is just personal preference. I like most of the Beatles songs, so it's tough to pick an overrated or an underrated. But I'm not as big a Rolling Stones fan, but they do have some really good songs. But there is definitely one amongst their hits that I consider the most overrated, and there's a couple songs that I think are really good that I don't think get the acclaim that they should. So I'll start with the overrated. Start Me Up is hideous. I really hate that song. I've heard, now I believe it was released in 81. I think it was on Tattoo You. Yeah, and in 81. And okay, it's an okay hit. It's not the Stones in their prime. I think it was their attempt at a pop single. It's catchy, but it's annoying. And as the years have gone by, especially like in the classic rock radio stations in Buffalo, if they do a 2 for Tuesday or a 3 for Thursday superset or some baloney like that, Start Me Up is always in that group. And it's just not that good of a song. So that's the most overrated for me. Peter, you go first.
So, little known fact about Tattoo You is most of those songs weren't recorded for that album. They were all outtakes from other recording sessions.
So they were leftovers.
Yeah. They came back around. It's actually a stunningly good album if you go listen to it. There's some really good stuff in there. Start Me Up was actually a reggae song, and they kind of Keith changed the riff and eventually came back. But before that, it was a reggae song. It's funny you say that. So we're doing overrated.
Overrated.
Oh yeah. Anything like the Ruby Tuesday, Paint It Black, all that stuff I can't stand. Paint It Black, I literally turn the radio when I hear it. I just can't stand it. I don't know why that, out of the entire Stones catalog,
right?
I don't know why that song gets played all the time. It drives me nuts. There's so much better stuff than that song. But hey, Paint It Black.
Okay. Russ?
Beast of Burden. I just don't like it.
Ooh, okay.
There's nothing I like about it. It just grates on my nerves. It's like, great. You don't want to be my Beast of Burden. Don't elongate that for 4 minutes. Tell me that in a card, and that'll be sufficient.
Now, Eck, we know because you spilled early on Friday. Yeah. Your overrated was Satisfaction.
Don't worry, he probably changed it already.
No, I'm overrated with the Stones in general. I'm gonna throw that out there.
Okay. Yeah, I agree there, but I
really think that they are the most overrated band in history.
Okay.
So, I'm not. I mean, and listen, more credit to them. Longevity should count for something. They played a lot of seasons. I mean, they deserve credit for being
tours too.
They've been around for a long time. I'm not saying they're not talented. I'm not saying there aren't some very beautiful songs. Ruby Tuesday is an amazing song. Is that one of your overrated songs?
How much bars for Peter? You'd like to hear it again?
Yeah, I love it. I figured that was one of your overrated songs. I ended it.
Okay, well, since we know you're overrated, what's the underrated one for you?
This is so hard because I really don't even know the Stones.
Okay, well, we'll save you.
My underrated song I think would be Ruby Tuesday, but I think it's probably one of your overrated songs. Or probably
it's personal preference.
It's yours. It doesn't matter.
I mean, I want to throw that. I Can't Always Get What You Want. I hate that song, with a passion.
Which is it's instinctively, or it's tied to the Big Chill because it's been,
which I love. It's a great movie,
right?
But but also is tied to political things now, and it was like the
right.
Anyway.
Okay,
so that to me is the most obnoxious thing ever to use in politics. So yeah, I think that song just bothers me to no end.
Okay, but as an underrated song, I mean, one that you think is good but doesn't get the credit that you think it deserves.
Come here.
I mean, think on that if you need to think.
I'll think on it for a second, but I can't really. I mean, honestly, it's just not a band. I mean, if we're talking about the Kinks, we throw another band.
No,
I think the Kinks are way better than the Rolling Stones.
Right.
And that's like
well, you could say Emotional Rescue. That was my run up for most overrated Stone song, but it wasn't that big of a hit. So
yeah.
Oh, Peter, what is your well, Russ, you said you're back. What is your most underrated?
I'm going to go Angie because it doesn't sound like the Rolling Stones. It just sounds like Mick Jagger, and I'm fine with Mick Jagger. I think he's a great talent. I don't think anybody else in that band is a great talent. And that's the thing. So when I hear that song, I hear Mick Jagger, and I don't really hear anybody else, and that's good.
And it's sort of antithetical to the Stones' usual song. It's like sort of like Beth by Kiss. There's no other Kiss song like Beth.
Right.
And it's a ballad. But okay,
which
Peter,
is the song this is the fun. Can I talk about Beth for a second? I gotta talk about Beth for a second because that is I was not a Kiss person, okay, like at all. Like I didn't know, I wasn't a member of the Kiss Army like you guys were and all that stuff. That wasn't my world.
Not mine either.
So I heard Beth I heard that song the other day. I heard that song the other day covered by somebody, right? My wife's like, oh, I love this song, and I'm like, I've never heard this song before, and she's like, you've never heard Beth before? I'm like, no. She's like, this is a Kiss song. I'm like, what? This is a Kiss song? I've honestly had never heard it, and it is a beautiful song, but it's like totally. I mean, I bet there's a lot of people that have no idea that that's Kiss.
It's a complete departure from everything they did. Okay, Peter, most underrated Stones song.
I've got a couple. Some definitely Monkey off Goat's Head Soup. It's a fabulous song. Fabulous song. I'm a big fan of Dead Flowers. I've heard a number of different bands play it over the years. It's a great song.
You're going deep cuts, but that's good. I like that's good.
The one song that you hear once in a while that you could never, ever write again and put on the radio is Some Girls. There are lines in that song that only Mick Jagger could ever get away with.
Right.
And it's actually an incredibly wacky song. And I encourage people to go back and listen to it and think about if someone wrote that today, the gong show that would ensue. It's a very weird statement on what was going on at that time and what those guys could get away with. It's incredible.
Yeah. Mine is a two-way tie, both from the Mick Taylor era of the Stones, which is like I think 71 to 75, I think it is. And they're both hits, but I think that they're severely underrated. One is Bitch.
Oh yeah. The extended version of Bitch is phenomenal.
Yeah, and Heartbreaker is a fantastic. Yeah. So well, I mean, that is the like. I don't like the early Stones, like you've said, and like the 15th or 19th Nervous Breakdown.
Yeah,
that era, because they were just sort of finding themselves. When Mick Taylor joined the band, he was a bluesy guitar player, and he really provided an edge that they didn't have. And they were great for a span of like 5 or 6 years. And then he left, and then they went disco, and then they went pop with Tattoo You. And then I have
an underrated Stone song. A friend of mine just texted me from my childhood who's watching. He's like, yeah, I remember you turned me on to a Stone song. And I'm like, you're kidding me. And he's like, no, you didn't. You actually turned me on to it. And I guess one of the 45s I bought, like I was a big 45 buyer. Okay. I used to buy 45s, was Waiting for a Friend. Which is a really good song.
That's a good song.
Yeah. Just consider this. The Mick Taylor Stones are maybe the best Stones.
Yes.
But Mick Taylor was 16 in 1965. So at age 20, he then joins the biggest rock and roll band,
right,
and the most dangerous. And the reason he quit was he couldn't handle the lifestyle. They were out of control then. That 69 through 74 period is unbelievable what those guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he just quit because he couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, Keith Richards was mainline in heroin, and it's so shocking he's still alive today. But that was the era that they.
Well, there was always that thing with Richards that he would go overseas to Switzerland and get a full blood transfusion every year.
Jeez. Okay, let's. So we did the
open. Knows about it too.
We'll move on. Let's start the show, and we'll pick another band for tomorrow for the pre-show, and we kept it shorter than usual. So,
all right, here goes. Okay. Hello, Hockey World. It's Monday, August 19th, 2019.
I'm Stones hater Mike Lagello.
I'm Pete Jesse in Balmy, Winnipeg.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I am Eklund. You're watching the Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This podcast comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I guess we have to start today with, since Peter has claimed himself on the internet to be the Patrick Laine whisperer, or at least the whisperer for fans who are worried about Patrick Laine. So Patrick Laine right now is over in Europe working out with with Mika Rantanen.
Yeah.
And he's over there, and he's come out lately with some lines that basically is like, we haven't talked at all. I don't know what's going on. I know I'm playing somewhere this year. Some things that are very, edgy for Patrick Laine.
Well, or not edgy, because he's a really direct kind of guy. He's got a little bit of mischief in the way he describes things, and he's had that since his draft year. So Chris Johnson did the interview and they put a story up on Sportsnet. It was interesting. The one issue I have with everything from this, and I think it's a bit of a failure on Chris's part, is once you started hearing this, wouldn't the logical question be, well, where did things leave off at the end of the season or for the summer? Wouldn't you want to know where this started and what was left? Because it could really be, well, we want to wait. There could be a logical explanation for this. And I think he failed a little bit to provide some context, because what he had was really good without context. And if the last thing Laine said, well, my agent, which I believe is Mike Liut, and the Jets we're talking and we just haven't heard back from them. Well, at least it wasn't like, see you later. We'll talk to you when we're ready, which is kind of how the whole thing's phrased. Needless to say, there's been a whole bunch of smoke about Laine. X often said that there's been talk of offer sheets for him. Maybe Montreal might be interested. There's been a little bit of, I think, random speculation that the Islanders would like to make a play for him. I just don't see anything happening right now, because teams have set their budgets. They've got their players. They've got their coaches. Unless something very one-sided happened for a team, I don't see a move being made for any of these guys.
Right.
I just don't.
I agree.
And Russ, the funny thing is that the only teams that really, other than Montreal, who struck out on Aho, the only teams out there that have money to play with are the teams that have restricted free agents. So unless they're trying to sort of do like, okay, well, we can't sign Rantanen, so we'll sign Laine.
Well, I mean, it's not exactly true. I don't think Arizona has any RFAs.
Yeah, no, they're remember, they have a lot of dead money on their cap. They don't have a lot of room.
How much room? They have no.
I'll look up, but
they probably could work it out. And with the new owner, if the new owner wanted to be brash, they could do it, but they're not going to do it.
Yeah, they actually they have less than $200,000 in cap space.
Wow. Okay, so they have eaten up way too much of the other contracts. So yeah, there's not a lot of teams.
Yeah,
there's a lot of insurance money being paying contracts.
Yeah. So it's going to be a negotiation, but look at how many RFAs are sitting there. They're all waiting.
Right.
Someone's going to have to make a move, or they're all going to come crashing in together, and someone's going to say to their agent, why haven't we had any talks? Like, there's going to be a pressure point, or owner's going to say to their GM, why haven't you moved on this?
Right.
Yeah, after Labor Day, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Exactly. But hold on, one thing. Can anyone remember an off season where we had this many big name RFAs?
No.
I don't think it's ever happened.
But I think there's two reasons. The first one is that young talent is now getting a chance to play so much earlier because of the cap, and there's a potential lockout, even though Bill Daly says there's progress, which is good. So with those two things happening, that's why it's like this. In the past, a lot of these guys would have signed already, but now this deal is even more important to them.
And I know that you reported on Marner, and I'll let you tell what you had mentioned yesterday. But you first. You go ahead to report what you.
I mean, it's fine. No, go you first. You continue.
Well, and this is the thing. The Marner camp does not give a crap what the agenda is for the Leafs. They want to get their money. They want to get paid. And, I know for a fact that the Leafs have been proactive in terms of making offers to the Marner camp.
Mm-hmm.
They made a 3-year offer. They made a 6-year offer. They made a 7-year offer. For a quarter, Marner's camp has either not gotten back to the Leafs or is not happy with those offers. So we're at a stalemate. And in this instance, Kyle Dubas cannot cave like he caved with William Nylander. And that's where, but I do not think that based on that, they're going to trade him. They're going to say, okay, if you can get an offer sheet, go ahead. You're not going to get an offer sheet, but if you can get one, go ahead. And if not, sit out. Be my guest.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't think so at the end of the day either. I mean, obviously, the way I see this playing out is the way everybody kind of sees it playing out, I think, which is that, that this will eventually get done and but here's the thing, about that, that there's things that happen along the way in these negotiations that, can add up to something or not, they can be like, okay, this is just talk. This is just this, and you hate to stress people out. Like last night, man, I really stressed out Leaf Nation. I didn't mean to, by what I wrote, but I was just I was just simply saying what I was told and
right.
What someone said to me. And the quote that I thought kind of interesting was this one, that they felt, that the Leafs were feeling, this is from somebody very, very close to the situation. I mean, crazy close, that the Leafs are feeling quite disrespected right now at the moment. And this is what happens through these processes, right? Like you go up and down. But at the moment they feel disrespected. And if the Mariners aren't willing to stop the games, changes to this whole process are imminent. That's what I was told. So,
and right now, and Peter and Russ jump on this. If I think that the Marner camp and Mitch Marner are playing the William Nylander playbook.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
that's not a good playbook for them to play.
No, it's not. But
it's not. It worked before.
Right. In the end,
but it didn't work. See, it worked for Nylander, but it didn't work.
But then it did work. That's the point.
But the problem is that the Leafs, in this instance, they caved on Nylander, and everybody has said after the fact, they regret that they did, and B, the reason that they did it was because they were in the race for the cup at the time that they signed the deal, and they didn't want the fact that they couldn't sign Nylander to be the reason that it prevented them from winning the cup. In the end, him coming in and playing badly for most of the second half, I think ruined or was a contributing factor to them not advancing past the first round.
So this is what you have to remember about the NHL and about these kind of things, that this is a what have you done for me lately world, and they react to what the most recent thing that happened was. And to the Leafs thinking a holdout is bad, right? That's just thrown into bigger pictures. Like the bigger picture is last year they didn't get him done before the season, and that turned out to be a problem.
Right.
It's not as important as Mitch Marner.
Right.
It turned out to be a problem.
And Dubas, I think, and I think probably this is going on with other teams like Boston with McAvoy and Carlo, and Winnipeg with Connor and Laine. The Leafs did not do what they did last year with Nylander. They were waiting, essentially. They made initial offers, but then it really didn't get going in terms of negotiations until just before training camp. And then they were at an impasse, and it went into the season. The Leafs have been making offers, and the Leafs have been talking to Darren Ferris since the middle of last season. Since that was prior.
Yeah, but they are nowhere close. It doesn't. That's why my source said what he said to me. Like they're just frustrated. They're really frustrated by this process. Like there's a point at which.
Well, I mean, because the Leafs are from Mars and the Marner camp is from Venus. That's what they're talking different languages right now.
It's starting to like there's just a point at which in these things that we've seen them before. There's a point at which that these sides have to realize that they cannot just get everything they want, and they have to figure it out, because for the better of the team in general. And that's the big thing, is not for better of like the Leafs making more money or Marner making more money,
right?
But just for the better of the team in general. They do not want to take this, and they have done everything they've done in the off season,
right?
To make to give space for Mitch Marner. Like that's the difference between this year and last year, I think, is more or less the fact that Dubas last year, he wanted to get Nylander done. He was doing things, of course, to leave space to sign Nylander, but not nearly what he did this year to leave space to sign Marner, and that has dictated a lot. Like, the Jets are a good example of this too. Like the Jets, they still have like depth positions they have to fill. They have holes that they have to fill, and yet they're sitting there and they can't do that because they don't know what's going on with Connor and Line. So they sit there and they have like 17 guys signed or something like that. I read, right? So as far as the roster goes, the Jets have to do things, but the fact is when you don't know what's happening with these other players, you lose out on other things as it goes along. That frustrates the GM, that frustrates the team. And all this becomes like, okay, we know you're trying to get the most you can get, but at some point you got to help us out because this is really starting to, and that's where I think things are getting to between the Maple Leafs and Mark.
The Leafs, their point of view is we've been flexible. We've gone, like if the belief is out there, and I know that Chris Johnston reported this last week when he talked to Nylander, that the Leafs have offered over 10 on a 6 or 7 year deal to Marner and probably in the like 8-5 range on a 3-year deal. That's about as far as the Leafs are going to go. And if Darren Ferris is playing his playbook that he played with Athanasiou and with Josh Anderson, hoping that he's going to squeeze more money out of the Leafs, it's not happening. They can't keep doing it. So. Right. But Russ, I know that you had some news on the Flyers front regarding RFAs, and then we can go about the next section. Subject.
Jason Matias reported on Twitter. I do the Stick to Hockey podcast with him. That
he's a pretty good goalie. Pretty good goalie. Sorry,
he's a pretty good goalie. Yep.
Yeah, he was my backup at the outdoor game. Yeah.
He's close to a 2 to 3 year bridge deal for about $4.5 million. And he also said that the Provorov deal is pretty much stalled.
It's totally stalled.
So it's like, and it's not like that's nothing we don't already know, but the fact that we are in mid-August and you can't shed any new light on a signing, which is their most important defenseman and their biggest weakness of their team still, that's problematic for the Flyers for sure.
And this goes back a lot further. Like this Provorov thing goes back into last year, into Hextall's time. I mean, Hextall was warning people as he was leaving and before he left that Provorov was going to be a huge problem. That talking to the agent, the way it was happening. So there's definitely if any player, if there's a reason for concern, I would definitely think Provorov, there is reason for concern there. I'm not convinced that they're going to get this done. I'm not convinced that they're not going to move him. And talking to people again, now things are starting to get tense. Obviously, things are starting to happen, but the Flyers have, they've gone out of their way to do, and they're still talking trade with people. So they're not necessarily talking Provorov moving. Which could be an interesting scenario because
they have to get Konechny signed first before they could talk trade.
Yeah, I mean, and getting Konechny signed is big, and I think part of that, the Flyers have been playing a little bit of games there, they've been talking to other teams about players, and Konechny really wants to get on, and Konechny's in a spot right now where he has to get signed, like he has to get into camp because he is on the top line right now. Honestly, if he can, if assuming that Vigneault goes that way, if he doesn't come into camp, someone else jumps on.
He'll put him on the top line because he'll like his speed and his gumption.
Not if he's not there, he won't, though.
A few bad turnovers could get him on the second line.
Yeah. Well, if he's not there, then Giroux and Couturier suddenly find another line mate that clicks with them. Then Konechny finds himself slipping pretty quickly. Konechny's smart to get in
because everybody went crazy over the weekend thinking he's like their third line right wing. That is definitely not a guarantee.
Well, I get the feeling that like these general managers who have two restricted free agents, are concentrating more on the ones that they will be less of a problem to get signed.
It's interesting, Mike. That's interesting. I thought I talked to somebody about that exact thing, and you were like half right because there are definitely general managers that are one way or the other. There are GMs like that have to get. Obviously, what we've seen in Tampa is getting everybody else done, right? And then they're going to get Braden Point done. But there are, and we saw that in Toronto to a degree. I mean, there wasn't that many guys to get done. Besides
Kapanen and Janssen, and then they get.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I forgot they got those done really early. That's great. But yeah, so this is but there are some GMs that are the other way around that like they have to get and that's I think more what you're seeing in Winnipeg, honestly, which is the fact that that they really, and we'll I want to get more. We got to get more from Peter on this whole thing because we didn't get enough from him, and then we're going to go to some Ovechkin news. But Peter, I want to finish off the line. I think it's kind of interrupted you. I apologize.
No, he didn't. It's his natural flow. The interesting is Kyle Connor played in the Canadian Tour Players Cup stop in Winnipeg this weekend, and he was a sponsor's exemption and got to play. He's not a good golfer. He's a better goal scorer. And, he was around and he had really positive things to say, wanting to come back and blah, blah, blah. And it was a stark contrast to what Laine said. But Laine really, that's just him. I think it's more of who he is. And he basically what he's saying is, I expect to play somewhere. He goes, if something changes, I'll go play. I think it's really matter of fact. I think you know what? If you get Mitch Marner in front of a TV camera, I bet you he would say the same thing. Well, I expect to be playing somewhere.
Peter, you know what the difference is? Kyle Connor is a guy who went to college, is more mature. Laine is a kid who's pissed off that he doesn't have a contract because he thinks he's the best player on the team.
So that's it. So if you believe, like, not mean you as in Russ, but the figure of you, if you believe that there are some of these underlying issues that were reported and came out of the Jets locker room, never substantiated, only used the term by Paul Maurice, we have to unruffle some feathers. If you believe in that there's something there, then Laine probably is taking the approach that TSN 1290 broadcaster Jim Toth said in a tweet after this broke, was he's got a number and he's going to hold to it. So you want me in this situation, you're going to have to pay me, because either you won't address the issues that that we know exist, or you want me to live with those issues. And to do that, you've got to compensate me more, because those issues are why I'm not producing in the same manner you expect me to. It's sort of a double-edged sword. I think that's what people are hinting at who may have heard some inside information. I don't know how accurate that is. It's just how I interpret it.
Right. And the funny thing is, negotiations are a give and take. If if you don't think that you're getting enough on a 6 or 7 year deal, and of course I'm going back to Marner here, then the Leafs apparently have been open to a 3 year bridge deal. But when the Marner camp, and this is based on reporting, when the Marner camp is asking for the same amount that the Leafs offered on a 6 year deal for 3 years, somebody is in fantasy land here, because I'm sorry, there's a give and take, and all I see on one side is take. And that's
and it starts to, and the Leafs are, unfortunately for Marner, the Leafs are controlling the news cycle. Like and because they're really talking more. I think you're getting more stuff from them than you are from the Marner camp, who has been pretty quiet. And that's generally the case with these things. But there's a give and take, but there also has to be a general feeling of progression, and there has to be a general feeling of goodwill. Like, the best example would be the NHLPA and the NHL. Like, we've seen it before. Like, there's give and take there, but when the goodwill feeling goes away and both sides just say, well, the only way we're going to get anything is by having a lockout, that's when things fall up. That's when things get ugly, right? And that's where things are starting to get with Marner. The only thing things are going to work out now, and it's not just Marner, it's most of these guys,
right?
And the problem is, I think that I do believe that most of the NHL thought that Marner would be signed first. And I think that what's going to happen over the next couple of weeks are like guys like Laine, Rantanen, other guys like that.
He may be last.
They're going to have to say, well, you know what? We're not going to be able to gauge this on what Marner gets after all, because we're not going to have a holdout. So,
and that might be good news for Toronto, because they can use those.
Right. It is good news. But Toronto and Marner are such a high profile thing that I think that people were just like, okay, we'll sit back. But I think that is what's going to change in the next week or so. Like, that people aren't going to say, because when they realize that Marner's not going anywhere right now and that it's not getting done, that it's not getting close. And as we're going to figure it out.
Esmer in the chat, and then we'll go to talk about it. Esmer in the chat was asking, if you're Dubas, and you decide to trade Marner, what team are you willing to contact and discuss a trade? The Leafs won't contact teams. Believe me, if he puts Marner out there, the teams will contact them. And
they already have,
they already have. But
they there's no question. I mean, they love when they say no one's called me. That's just completely ridiculous. Okay,
You're not
These
doing your
GMs
job if you're not calling him up, going,
right,
"Hey,
right. If you're not at least
wanna
calling
talk
him and
for a
saying,
bit?"
"So what's going on with Marner?" Yeah, like
Right.
you
Like,
have to.
not
They've
everything
been
no doubt.
formal sheet sent in an email signed, and here's our offer form. It's
Right.
joking around. Yeah, so Paul's driving you nuts. Do you want to get rid of your problem? Like,
Right.
that's how it goes.
Yeah. That is the reality of it all. So
Okay, so let's move to Russ, what you've learned about, because we've seen Alex Ovechkin go over to China and being the NHL's goodwill ambassador for like the upcoming Olympics, which I believe the NHL is going to. But he's over in Russia, and you've heard some interesting things.
Yeah. So what ended up in my email box today was Alex Ovechkin was invited to watch a game between Avant-Garde and Dynamo Moscow. But at that game, he decided to talk about his plans for life after the Washington Capitals. So here's the quote. "Let's see what's coming." The Washington Capitals forward said, "In 2021, my contract in Washington expires, and I've never hidden the fact that I'm looking at a range of options. Everything will depend on my health. I will follow the KHL closely online, and I think the league is developing the right way. I always keep in touch with Dynamo Moscow." And then after that, it says he played there during the lockout. Oh, and by the way, he currently has an advisory role with the Blue and White, which is Dynamo. And so there's that. You put together the fact that he is friends with Putin and some other politicians there. He did just recently visit a youth academy in Moscow, in the Moscow region. Apparently Avant-Garde temporarily moved into like the Moscow region, which I was told is sort of like LA and Orange County. It's
yeah.
that. And who is there? Valery Kamensky, because somehow he's involved.
Well, he's always big. He's a big character over there. Yeah.
In the Moscow region hockey area, right?
Oh, big time.
So all of this we're talking about is the Moscow region. Ovechkin is talking about the youth hockey situation over there. And of course, he was asked the question, does he ever want to be the minister of hockey? And he sort of sidestepped that right now, but Tretiak right now has the job.
Right.
But you got to admit, it to me, this seems like A, he wants to go back over there and play, and B, does want to move into a position like that.
Well, kind of. He'll be a god, really, when you think about it, it's a hard.
He says he likes Washington, likes living there, but he has to say that.
Yeah, he does. He has to say that. He also, when he's in Russia, he has to say that too. So it's like
he's a patriot to his country, and he wants to get involved and do things. That's great. He should.
Yeah, he should. And he's over there too. And he's probably being he's going to have to be very careful about what he says too. In situations like that.
Evgeny Malkin is not in an advisory role to a KHL organization. That is the part here that I've never seen this in all my years of players who have gone back and forth. Gone back to Russia, played back over here. I've never seen a player be put in a role like that.
It's a smart move.
NHL.
Smart move by the Dynamo.
Well, and he's obviously laying the groundwork for his post NHL career. The question that's upmost in the minds of Capitals fans and NHL fans is that, does that start in 2021? And does he go over like Datsuk did and play the final few years of? What would he be? I think he'd be 33 or 34. It's awful young. He probably would make just as much or more there because he's a star.
He'd make more there.
Yeah, he'd probably make I know Datsuk, I think, made $15 million, or somebody maybe it was Kovalchuk made $15 million for SKA St. Petersburg.
Can you imagine what Ovechkin would make if that's the case? It's not just like. It behooves the whole KHL to pay every team to pay him another $5 million just to play. It behooves everybody. It just makes sense for the KHL. Getting Ovechkin over there, it would be such a huge coup for them. It's just an unbelievable get, and he does want to play there.
Yeah, and
I added probably at this, the guy who is sort of left out of this is Evgeny Malkin, and you kind of wonder how he feels about all of this.
There's a big difference between Ovechkin and Malkin when it comes to Russia. We got to get our Russian guy on here sometime. But honestly, we got to remember the way Malkin came to America versus the way Ovechkin came to America too. Remember, Malkin left, like he literally left his team.
Yeah.
He did like an old fashioned, I'm out of here, sneak away type thing, where Ovechkin came over here, without that kind of thing. So that there's a big difference. I don't think Malkin has really been completely, loved as much because of that. And I think that's affected things over there. And I don't think Malkin loves his homeland the same way. I'm not saying he doesn't love it, but I've heard that they're very different towards their attitudes. I mean, obviously Malkin shows up and plays for Team Russia when he's asked.
So let's talk about one other factor here. So let's say Ovechkin does go over there in 2 years. How will that affect Russian players wanting to come over to the NHL or stay there? I think Ovechkin will not only draw some players from the NHL back over there, but even a guy like, let's say Kaprizov's not signed by then. He probably talked Kaprizov into staying there, and he probably talked a lot of kids. Hold on. And he probably talked a lot of kids who maybe would have gotten drafted and come over to North America to stay over there longer because he's Alex Ovechkin. Yeah. It's a lot easier to listen to Alex Ovechkin than it is Trey.
Oh, for sure. But
But the problem is that not Kaprizov is not going to have the leverage to get that kind of money out of the KHL that he. No. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Ovechkin. Part of the and I don't think Ovechkin is
building a better league.
I don't think Ovechkin's purely motivated, right? But he's not purely motivated by money. But I think a factor is if he can make as much or more money playing at home, that's a great thing. I don't think Kaprizov is going to make as much money playing for wherever he's playing than he would for Minnesota after a year or two. So I don't think that sort of balances out. Yes, Ovechkin being in the KHL will make the league better, but it's not going to make it so much better, and it's not going to make it more financially feasible for these players to. They're still coming over to the NHL to play in the best league in the world.
Yeah, they're still going to make like Ovechkin did himself. You can't sit back and say he did the same thing. But
some will. But I'm telling you, he'll get a lot more to stay there than had previous.
He may get the third or fourth. He might get the third or fourth liners to stay there. Like he might get more of those guys, which already happens. We're already seeing more guys that could. There are guys in the KHL that could play in the NHL. We know that right now. There are guys over there, and a lot of them are the third and fourth line guys that could play over here as third or fourth liners with limited minutes, but score pretty significantly over there. But I think that will play into it. I think in general, though, honestly, and I hate to say it's for Caps fans because Caps fans, it's horrible if Ovechkin leaves the NHL. But I think for hockey in general, the greater hockey of the world, having Ovechkin playing in Russia would probably be good. I mean, it's just because
the Olympics, because that's really what all of this is gearing up for, is Ovechkin really trying to win it for Russia in the Olympics. Yeah. And that's where I think things could get a little messy between his U.S. fan and just Russia versus the U.S.
I know I'm talking more in terms of like kids playing hockey and stuff like that in Russia. I'm talking more in terms of
he's actually influencing those kids right now.
Right. And I think that's enormous for hockey in general, because the more people on this planet play this sport, the better it gets. Right.
He could have that positive effect doing that 4 or 5 years from now. It doesn't have to be right away. What I think obviously, I think the NHL is going to the Olympics in 2022 in China. But if they don't, obviously Ovechkin going over to KHL guarantees. You don't think that he was pissed off that he couldn't go and win a gold medal with those Russian players? I'm sure he was in private.
He was very upset about that.
Very upset about it. Exactly.
There's no question about it. He was. He and he almost went. Like I was told that there was actually talk, that the NHL wouldn't let it happen, but the Ted Leonsis, Craig Leopold, Ted Leonsis, actually talk to the NHL about this and be like, okay, can we let some of these guys just go? And the NHL says, no, we can't let some of them go at all. Like it's got to be an all or nothing thing. Right. Because Leonsis realizes that he's got to keep Ovechkin happy. And I think he thought, we was okay with him doing that. But and Ovechkin turned out, winning a Stanley Cup and had a heck of a year. But I think Ovechkin winning a Stanley Cup also is a factor here. I do. I think the fact that he has won it.
Yes.
And he's the kind of guy who is very goal oriented, as we saw. Like his joy of winning the Stanley Cup shows you how much that guy wanted to win the Stanley Cup. So somebody who's that goal oriented, who's already achieved everything he can basically achieve in this league, why not go try and achieve something over there in your homeland? It feels to me like, that there's a bigger chance he does that than he doesn't. Like, I don't see why he wouldn't do that. Like,
he's doing it. I think there were questions before, but I think there's enough stuff there now that leads you to believe he's gonna do it.
So that means we have 2 more years of Ovechkin in the NHL, essentially, right?
Yeah, and his decision will be made easier if there is a lockout, because then he just goes over there and plays, and then probably doesn't come back even if the lockout ends, because he'd be UFA.
Yeah,
I'm sure. If he signs in Russia and plays there during the lockout, and he has the ability to come over after his team is eliminated in the KHL playoffs, boy, will there be a ton of rumors. Well, the Canadians are going to sign Alex Ovechkin, or the Winnipeg Jets, or
and maybe he'll be like, I don't see him quite like a Jágr type character who does that.
No, I don't think he'll come back. I honestly think if he goes over there, he's not coming back here to play, because he is friends with Putin, and he is friends with that.
And can you imagine like the praise and accolades and everything, and the kind of like place he's going to live in over there? Just like, it's granted. Russia has some beautiful, beautiful sections, and people don't give it credit. He could live in a beautiful mansion in St. Petersburg and just be like, a king. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine.
He's royalty over there.
He's already royalty, yeah.
And that's fine. I think the reason he wouldn't come back is because, unlike some other players, he's got a very passionate sort of socio-political view about him that he believes in. Yeah. And his next thing is going to be taking what he's done and trying to instill that in other kids, programs, whatever it is. He's just a different cat that way. And that's good. I think that kind of stuff is not a bad thing. His political views on Putin, whatever, that's its own entity, right?
He's really careful not to talk about that.
Yeah, and he believes what he's going to believe. I'm sure he's not the only Russian who likes Putin. So there you go.
No, for sure.
And that's a different conversation. As it comes to his career, Jágr never wanted to quit playing hockey because he loved being around hockey.
Right.
Ovechkin will quit hockey, but he will be around hockey in different capacity because he thinks about it differently. And that's the difference between those kind of guys, right?
Yeah.
Ovechkin coming back and getting involved with a KHL team could actually be great for the KHL.
It would be great.
And helping it make something of it and stabilizing it and giving it some influx of whatever it needs.
You got to remember, Jágr doesn't like responsibility. He doesn't.
So Jágr doesn't want to be. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah,
he would never want to be in a position like that, because he doesn't like. Jaromir Jágr loves playing around with the media, having fun in hockey. He doesn't like having to answer a lot of questions, though. He doesn't.
No, and he's not serious about them ever. As for the last 5 years of his career, when you ask him a question in the locker room, you never got like a real answer.
No, you got a question. You got another question.
Or you got like something goofy. He's fun. He's fun to be a fun guy to be around because of that. There's so many people who are just machines. He's not, but I think it's a really interesting run, Russ. I think we're gonna have to keep an eye on that. It's going to be fascinating how that plays out.
Now,
go ahead, Mike.
I know I had a couple of things that I think we should touch on. One, Russ brought up the name of Chase Prisky last week as a guy at August 15th who was going to go be a UFA. It was a Washington draft pick who they couldn't get under a contract. He signed this weekend with Carolina, which is ironic because Carolina couldn't get Adam Fox signed. Yep. And I think with a little bit of like Monday morning quarterbacking / regret, they go out and sign themselves a college free agent UFA, or he was a draft pick, but he was a free agent defenseman. I'm surprised, Russ. I think it's a good signing, and you talked about it last week. But I'm surprised that Prisky signed with Carolina simply because of the depth they have on the blue line.
Well, we don't know how many options he had, and so that's one thing. We don't know what they offered him down the road.
Mm-hmm. I do know the Islanders and Montreal made offers.
Because what if they say, hey, Chase, go down there, kill it in Charlotte. If you're doing well by the deadline, we're trading Justin Falk anyhow, and you can come up. Like, that's a potential scenario that's realistic now for that team. Mm-hmm. So I think he looked at it that way and knows that they're a successful team. He's a little bit of a step below like a Will Butcher and an Adam Fox, but he's really good. I mean, he played top power play, penalty kill. He skates well. But I do think the AHL would do him some good just for a little bit, because I don't think he's played against a lot of elite competition. Like Fox played against a lot of elite competition. There's a little bit of a difference in when you're becoming a player with that. I think Prisky could use a little bit of that, and that's why I think maybe they told him, hey, right after the All-Star break, something like that, you look good, we're going to call you up.
I heard Dundon contacted him directly, which is interesting.
That's good. I mean, at least that's aggressive. Yeah, that's aggressive.
If you're a college kid, that's something that means something, because you're sitting there and the owner of the team contacts you. That tells you that you've got a chance. And
it shows that what we've always said and what Mike said, that teams with almost no opportunity like the Capitals, it's not a great place for him to be. The interesting part is the Capitals didn't even get anything for him,
right?
Which then makes me wonder what kind of market was there for Chase Prisky, and maybe that's why he jumped to Carolina. There may not have been a huge market,
or teams were didn't think it was worthwhile to trade a mid-round draft pick for him.
Right.
They just wait till August 15th and get him for nothing. So
right. Yeah, it's probably that. That's probably the answer.
Now the other one, and it was more of an NBA story, but I think it has ramifications with the NHL, is the fact that Mikhail Provorov, who was the owner of the Brooklyn Nets and the Barclays Center, sold 51% of his ownership stake and the building to a Canadian businessman. I think he's Canadian and Chinese, I believe, named Joseph Tai. Now the Barclays Center, and remember, the Islanders are essentially, I mean, maybe this is wrong phraseology. I think they've been kicked out of Barclays. They didn't want them there anymore, almost forcing them to play most of their games at Nassau until this supposed new building is built. Does this change what's going on with the Barclays Center and with their ability to, or the ability to have to play exclusively at Nassau, or even what's going on with this building, Russ? I mean,
there's some interesting things. So now I kind of wonder, because someone had told me that they had the Islanders hadn't really sold any small game package plans, just full season ticket plans up to this point. And that does make you wonder, because every other team in the league is doing it. So the answer for that might be because this was all in the works and it's being discussed. So probably they'll be playing at Barclays, because I don't think this new guy will let them just walk over and play all the games at the Coliseum. So because Barclays still has a contract with them. So I think there will be some games at Barclays. Now they're probably hammering out what ones and just how many.
Yeah. I mean, it maybe makes it, I heard, a little bit more flexible for them to a degree, because remember, like, Barclay, I mean, when you own an arena like that, because I own several, I can tell you that when you own an arena like that, you want to fill up the you're trying to fill up your dates, and the reality is, you got touring bands and all different kinds of events happening and conventions and different things that come through, and they they really want, so with flexibility is what they kind of need, because if the Islanders, they can have the Islanders in there when they don't have anything else going on, but if they've got something that's willing to pay like for 3 or 4 nights, the Islanders, or one game, that kind of thing, that's what's going on. There's a lot of business. I mean, the good news is the Islanders building is getting built in Queens. I mean, that's getting done.
Built, but again, there is an open window now for Floral Park to have litigation up until December. If they do, that will slow it down a little more. Nothing's going to stop it at this point.
Yeah,
everything's a go, but it could still get slowed down some more. And so it's already been slowed down.
Unless on the island, chances are it will get slowed down some more, but not anything. I think they're beyond the danger zone.
Yeah, I think they're beyond the danger zone. Now the timing of it is going to be the everything part. And I think that's the part where, again, the harder sell is when you're an Islander season ticket holder, you have this arena to look forward to.
Yeah.
When you're buying season tickets today, you don't know exactly the date that you're going to get to be in that new arena.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
a hesitancy point for some season ticket holders.
This year, this is going to make this year really tricky for them to sell, and especially, when you don't know exactly where all the games are being played. I mean, that is such a huge difference out there. It's just crazy. I mean, it's like playing on the island, playing actually at Nassau is what Islanders fans are still used to. That's still what they want. So they've adjusted. A lot of them have, but I think there's not
new train. The new train is still going to make the same mistake that every other.
Is there a train? I didn't even know there's a new train.
Well, they're going to have a line, and it's going to be the same line that runs when Belmont runs. But the problem is, again, it runs for people from the West.
It's so funny. I mean, like why can't there be a simple way to get there? It's like
people from the East can get there, but they have to change at Jamaica. And when changing at Jamaica, and I used to do this as a kid going to Mets games.
Yeah.
So you get off the train and you go down the stairs and you walk like,
it's
500, 600, 700 feet. And then you go back up the stairs in not a great neighborhood. And you go back up to the other train track. When you're already commuting home from work, that is a pain in the neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify, the owner, Joseph Tai, he is born in Taiwan. He has Canadian and Chinese citizenship. So, but he owns a website called Alibaba, which is
one of the biggest websites in the world. I mean, that's like an enormous website.
Yeah,
I won't even talk about Alibaba.
I mean, if everyone knows what Alibaba is out there.
I don't think everybody does.
All right, well, what Alibaba is real quickly is like, if you want to buy, if you want to buy one SD card like this, you can get this for like, I don't know, $20 or something like that. If you want to buy 25,000 of these, you can go on Alibaba and get it for 3 cents a piece, like that kind of thing. But you got to buy 25,000 of them.
Alibaba is a mercantile exchange that was used for manufacturers and then large purchasers and stuff. And now what it is it's just an intermediary interface on that.
Right.
So it's become consumer. It's not just wholesalers, it's consumer too.
Right.
Oh, it's consumers, but you still got to buy 50 of things. So you can also submit things in that you want companies to make to you through it as well.
Yeah.
So you may have a design and you want it manufactured in Asia really cheap and to import it. You go through Alibaba and blah, blah, blah. They'll do it.
Yeah, I bought these Roger Cedeno rookie cards once. I still have them.
There is a ton of money. This guy is part of Alibaba. If he's like, if he's a janitor at Alibaba, and he's not, he's like what, the CEO of Alibaba?
He's the owner of Alibaba.
So like, he's not hurting. Okay,
no.
He could buy Long Island.
Yeah, he's the second largest individual shareholder of Alibaba.
No, he can't buy Long Island Neck, but I guess.
Could he buy Greenland?
Again, we move on.
Okay.
Yeah, let's not go there.
I want to put a hockey team in Reykjavik. That's what I want to do. I think that would be perfect.
Okay, Mighty Ducks.
Anyway, continue.
Now, Aki, you did mention in your blog today Jake Gardner and his situation.
Yes, the great old Jake Gardner situation. And then we got to go. But yes, Jake Gardner. We have some really good questions in there too. I'm going to really quickly on Jake Gardner. I have talked to somebody close. I saw Steve Simmons wrote an article that Jake Gardner's not talking to anybody about. Yeah,
he bumped into Jake Gardner. They exchanged pleasantries. Gardner does not want to talk about his situation right now in terms of signing. I mean, it's been out there for a while that he would love to come back to Toronto, but it's almost virtually impossible, especially with the Marner thing still hanging out there. If Marner gets what we think he's going to get, they simply don't have the room to sign Gardner even for a 1-year deal. So I think the Toronto thing is closed off to him, but you're hearing something different.
Yeah, Toronto's not closed off to him in his mind, at least. And I don't know whether he's been told or whether he's just hanging out on his own. But from what I've been told, that's still like his first choice to come back to Toronto. And whether or not he does that or not, I think he does need his other options. I think Florida is definitely an option, and Colorado's an option. From what I've been looking for, I did a lot of searching on him last week.
Russ' first choice too, and he worked out forever. But
yeah. So I don't know. But he still thinks he can play there. So that tells me either that he either just thinks that on his own, or that someone in the Leafs has said, wait till this Marner thing gets done and we'll talk. I do think it's nothing's happening until Marner gets done with Gardner in Toronto, and if so, Gardner better find another place to play, because I don't think that.
I think Gardner's going to be making an Anton Stroman type decision where he's got 45 minutes to decide on two teams.
That's what it feels like.
Camp.
It really feels like that. That's where it's heading. So yeah. A couple of questions in the chat real fast. They're going to get out in 2 minutes, unfortunately.
Let's see here. Ak, as we get closer to training camp, at the beginning of the season, what teams have cap space will benefit, scoop up good players with bad cap? Will bad cap teams try to sign RFAs?
This is a really good question and a full-fledged show that we could do on this. There is so much involved with this, and I will be hitting this tomorrow in my blog. It's part of my blog tomorrow, but also Andrew, I'm going to copy this and answer this in my blog this afternoon, but as best I can, because it really takes a lot more thought than just, there's initial thoughts that you could always have, of course, but I think one team that comes into play initially that everybody's talking about is Columbus having, some money to benefit from some players that may have to get moved to make space for RFAs or what have you, because Columbus has money. I think somebody else asked, I think it was Esmir asked in here as well, about the concept of like a line A for Marner type trade. Not those players, but the idea of, are we going to see RFA for RFA?
Rowinski. That was the one that he...
Right. Are we going to, or, Provorov for Rowinski, or something like that? Are these things that make any sense? And they could. I mean, we could see that. I mean, like Peter said, we are very much in uncharted territory right now. Like, there is nothing. We've never been in a situation with this much talent not signed this close to the season, and bad blood is starting to build. And at some point, you might just take on somebody else's bad blood, and they take on yours, and just say, okay, like Rowinski for Provorov is a really interesting one. Russ, who do you think benefits? Who do you think's a better player? I mean, that's a tough one to me.
Oh, I mean, I think Werenski is a better offensive player, and I think Provorov is slightly better defensively when he has his right year. Last year is not a great year. So it's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
I think they're both really good. I think it's as close as it could be.
Yeah. And I want to can I touch on Fenton for a second too? Because it's really interesting. I had a really good discussion with somebody about Paul Fenton, and Paul Fenton obviously had a really bad scene. There was a lot of bad stuff going around, lots of issues happening here and there. And, and I talked to somebody else who I thought, might be going to be piling on Paul Fenton and a lot of stuff. And he wasn't. And he said, listen, he said, this is the thing. Paul Fenton might just not have been a great GM, but is a great person. And is one of these guys, like Paul Fenton holds like incredible camps for underprivileged kids and has done stuff his entire career. And he's like, if you have a problem, like if you were in a car accident and you barely knew Paul Fenton, but he was the one who discovered you, he would stay at the hospital all night with you, make sure you're okay. He is just a really top-notch person, and it's kind of tough when the guy goes through this situation. Obviously, as a general manager, he might not have had the right tools to handle and manage everybody, and manage like a big staff and all this stuff. But it's like it's being sold that he's like this evil person, and it's really, someone wanted me to get out there that was like the first.
It only got sold by one guy.
Yeah, but I think that other people have piled on a little bit, and I think
all the writing. No, but I didn't see anybody else write it. Did you?
No, not writers, but obviously, people, and I think Russo did a great job too. Like, I think he did a great job writing about the situation. And I'm not saying that anything in Russo's article was wrong, because I think it was probably all pretty much accurate. But, and from talking to people that I've talked to, there was even more to it. But. We sometimes forget in the whole process, like what these people are like as people, and there are some guys who get fired like this that are just jerks, like I've been around people, general managers. I'm like, yeah, that guy got fired. He's an idiot. Like, he's a jerk. And I really don't, this Paul Fenton is a different case. And he's definitely not a jerk. And he is one of these guys who I think it just didn't work, with certain dynamics. And, we'll never know whether it could have worked out, you never know all the different, I mean, when you go to a new job, there's so many dynamics with different kinds of people working at different levels. You just have no idea what happened here. So I just kind of wanted to get it out there on Paul Fenton a little bit, because I think that he is definitely one of those better people out there than you'll ever meet. And and there's a reason that David Poyle kept him as assistant GM for all those years. I mean, this is not, he's not a bad dude, and he's not one of these evil people. Like, and there are evil people out there. So anyway, just throwing that out there.
All right. We'll save some questions for tomorrow, so we can end the show right now. Then.
Yeah, we can end it now. Thanks, guys. So I have a question. My blog right now that's up right now is a what's the Eck blog too. So if you post your questions in the comments there, this afternoon I'm gonna write a response to them. So I'll respond to as many questions as possible. All right. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow. Awkward pause while we